collecting plants in the wild, and there was very little attempt until the 12th century, actually, to modify trees, to make the tree look something different than what it was when it was collected in the wild. So around the 12th century, there are the first inklings in writings of people trying to modify the shape. It wasn't until the 14th century, during the Yang Dynasty, when the Mongols started invading from the northern part of China. You know, the Mongols, Genghis Khan, you know. And of course, that's why they built the Great Wall of China, was to stop the Mongols. Well, it was during that period of time that a Chinese official, with his trees, fled to Japan. And when he fled to Japan, he introduced the art of bonsai to the Japanese people. And of course, the Japanese people immediately, embraced it. It wasn't until the 19th century that it became widely known in the western part of the world, and that was because of an exhibition that was in, oh, wait a minute, I forgot to tell you a story. I'll pass this one. In the 19th century, in the Paris exhibition, that the art of bonsai was brought to the Western civilization. And this particular exhibition moved on to London in 1909. And since then, of course, bonsai has become widely known throughout the Western Hemisphere. There are quite a few clubs around. There's the Fort Worth Bonsai Society, meets the third Thursday of every month at the Botanical, 7 o'clock in the evening. There's a Dallas Bonsai Society. I don't really know much about them. But then there's the American Bonsai Society, the ABS, and the art is well known throughout the Western Hemisphere now. It's still widely practiced in Japan and China. Let's see. Let's get out of history. I'm okay with history, but it's a little boring to me. I want to talk to you today about philosophy, because for me, philosophy, the bonsai philosophy is where it's at, So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking to you about philosophy. One of the very first things that a lot of Westerners that are not terribly knowledgeable about bonsai think is it has to be of great age. They have to be of great, great age. And that's not true. The philosophy behind bonsai is not of great age. It's the appearance of great age. You understand the difference? It's the appearance of great age. So here's Zelkova. This is a group planting. A group planting is called Yosei Wei, and 8 years to 25 years old, which is not terribly old for a plant. But do you see the appearance of great age? I mean, you can be driving up a panhandle and come over the rise of a hill and see that out in the field and think to yourself, wow, I bet those have been sitting out there for a long time. It's the appearance of great age that the philosophy of bonsai is. Here's a juniper planted on a rock, 25 years old. Now for a juniper, 25 years is, that's nothing. We probably have junipers growing in our yards that are older than 25 years. But appearance, the appearance of great age.
What's the height of that?
It's about 14 inches high. Yeah.
Very Japanese looking, isn't it?
And later on in my presentation, I will show you how to create a rock planting. It's fairly easy to do. It takes a little while, but later on I'll show you how to do that. So, that being said, yeah, some trees are very old. 200-year-old juniper. Now I get to really get into the philosophy here.
How did you know it was 200?
It's in a book of mine.
Okay.
It's in a book. This is the part that I love, and if I get a little choked up, it's because this is the heart of my presentation. Think about it, 200 years old. That means somewhere in the neighborhood of 1814, somebody planted that seed. 200 years ago. How did it get to where it is today? You know how it got there? Because the grower, the person that put that seed in the ground, began to teach his children. And then he taught his children's children. And when he passed away, he took his tree and he said to his children, "This is me, this is mine." And those children were smart enough to understand the philosophy behind bonsai, and they taught their children. And those children taught their children. And this tree has been passed through the family for 200 years. Think about that for a second. When you leave this earth, wouldn't this be something wonderful to leave behind for your children? I will guarantee you this is worth more than your couch.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Everything goes to Goodwill, right?
Think about it. This is one of those things that you can create, and you can keep on going through generation and generation and generation of your
living.
Yes. And you bring up an interesting point, because I've had people say to me, well, what is your final view of what this tree should look like? And I say to them, well, bonsai is the only art form that's never finished. It's like a painting that is never finished. You just keep on changing the painting, changing the art form. So it's the only art form that I know that is never finished. Okay, let me think now where we're going from here. Oh yes. So how do you buy a bonsai, or how do you get involved in the art form? This is a bonsai nursery. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not Home Depot. That is not Callaway's. This is a real bonsai nursery. And there are at least 4 of them in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, so there are some.
There's one in Capel.
I'll explain why I can't tell you that. But
Is this one local? Can you do that?
they are all in the Yellow Pages.
Is this particular nursery a local nursery?
Japanese.
The reason I can't tell you anything like that is because I represent Texas A&M University. Just like I can't tell you the best potting soil to use, I can't tell you the best nursery to go to, because it's a state-run school. So I'm trying not to be coy with you, but that's the reason I can't recommend that you go out and buy a certain chemical or something like that. Okay. So, but there are nurseries very similar to this in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a nice warm spring day and you don't have a lot to do, go spend some time in a nursery like this. I can spend hours wandering around up and down in there, looking at the trees, looking at them from different angles, thinking about the ideas that the grower brought forth. It is a fabulous, fabulous thing to do on a spring or a nice day, out and spend some time there. Now, if you do that and you decide that you want to buy one of these, this particular Japanese maple, I looked it up yesterday. It's still on the market. It's in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, $10,000. Bring your checkbook.
You're not supposed to tell us this expensive stuff.
Something like that would have been brought over by this nursery from Japan or China?
It's possible. It's also possible it was raised in the United States. Not all bonsai have their origins in the Far East.
But it could be 100 years old.
Yes, very well put, could be.
So that nursery has to have some way to find these people.
Not necessarily. The art has been around long enough that there are growers that their trees are that old, that have been planted here in the United States. So not necessarily, but that's a good point. You do want to, if you do buy one of these, you want to go to the nursery man and you want to ask the question, how old is it? Where did it come from? What's the background of the tree? So, if you want to do this and you want your own bonsai, then yes, you can go to a nursery and you can buy one. Everybody scared now?
I would be. I'd be afraid I'd kill it.
Everybody scared? Yeah. Well. Okay.
We're going to need the $29.95 one?
Yeah.
Okay, well now that I have you thoroughly scared, let me tell you the reality side. If you're interested, if I'm piquing your interest today with bonsai, here's the way you get started, okay? You do go to Lowe's. You do go to Home Depot. You go to Callaway's. And not only do you go to these places, but guess where you go in there? You go to the bargain rack. The bargain rack. Half off.
Yeah.
Why do you do that? Because, well, anybody that goes into Lowe's or Home Depot, they want the big trees. You know, they want the big, tall, straight trees. They want the most money tree for their money. But on the bargain table, what you get is you get the kind of crinkled ones, the ones that aren't real strong, may have a strange trunk looking to them. Those are the ones that you want. That's the ones that you want to kind of get started with, you know. So half off at Lowe's, bargain table. Get yourself a pot. Callaway's has some nice bonsai pots. Probably less than $10, you're into the art. If you lose the tree, well, you lose the tree. But at least you've got a start and you begin to understand the art. So, everybody take a deep breath now? That's all right? Doesn't take a lot, really.
It has a pedigree. I mean, they probably have a pedigree from when it started, and I'm talking about that $10,000.
I'm not sure. It's just Acer palmatum, and those you can get Japanese maples any place you want.
No, I'm talking about this $10,000.
Yeah, but I don't know if I've never heard of a tree being pedigreed.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let me get into a couple of questions that I always get asked, so I might as well address them while we're here. Before you guys, the first thing you ask me is, what do you do when it's snowing outside? When the ice storms are falling? You know, what do you do with your trees? Well, that's part of my growing area. That's part of my growing area. Matter of fact, this tree right here is just about in the middle of that photograph.
Was this last month?
No, this is a couple years ago. But
Last week?
Yeah.
and then let me see where I'm going to start with this. They are trees. They really are trees. They belong outside. They have to feel the cold of winter. They have to feel the heat of summer. They have to feel the sun move across the sky. They have to feel as the days get longer and in the fall the days get shorter. They're trees. That's where they belong. So the other question I get all the time is, you know, Jerry, I gotta understand. I bought this tree. I brought it home. I put it in my living room. I put it under a grow light. Made sure it got plenty of water. And it died. What did I do wrong? No, you took it inside. It doesn't belong inside. It belongs outside.
Yeah.
Okay? It belongs outside. Now, so the next question is, well, when do I get to bring it in? Okay, here we go. Back to philosophy. Back to philosophy. There's only one time. Now, if you can grasp what I'm about to tell you, it'll be worth the time that you came to listen to me today, what I'm about to tell you. The one time that you bring in your trees is to honor your special guest. That's the only time. And you only bring your tree in during the period of time that your guest is in your house. And then as soon as your guest leaves your house, right back outside. Right back outside. That's the only time you bring your tree in. And on top of that, you only bring in your best tree. I didn't say your best 3 or 4 or 5 trees. I said your best tree. Why? Because it would be very, very arrogant of you as a grower to say, well, I'm such a good bonsai grower that I've got 5 or 6 trees, I'm going to bring them all in. No, you don't. You have one best tree. I don't care if that tree has 2 brown leaves on it and this one has 1 brown leaf on it. That's your best tree. And that's the only tree you bring in to honor your special guest. And keeping with that philosophy, today I have brought you, as my special guests, my best tree.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's a Monterey cypress. It's almost 50 years old. And you can tell I'm not one of these people that does a lot of severe trimming and cutting. I kind of like the overall natural appeal of it. So you won't see me doing a lot of trimming and a lot of the moss on it. I'm afraid someone's going to ask me. I dressed it up for a lecture 2 months ago, and then I just haven't got around to taking the moss off. But 50 years old.
How old was it when you got it?
It was about 22 years old.
You kept it alive.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I still have, did I tell you I still have 2 of my original 3 plants? Oh, my wife bought me 3 trees back in 1989, and I still have 2 of the original 3. The one I lost is bamboo. And now, most of you know bamboo, especially outside. Oh, thing's prolific. You can't get rid of it. But trying to grow bamboo in a pot is very difficult. And so I lost that one, but I still have the Japanese maple, and I still have the little juniper. So that's the philosophy. That's the whole idea. Is you bring it in when your special guest is in your house.
That's kind of big to bring in.
Well, people ask me yeah. People ask me, where do you get the inspiration for maybe a form that you think you would like to reproduce in miniature? And my reply is always, take a walk in the country. That's what we do, right? You guys live out here because what? You love being out in the country. And of course these days it's so nice, everybody's got their cell phones and they got, cameras on them, so you're wandering around in the country, take a couple of pictures, go home, and think to yourself, how am I going to recreate that in miniature in my garden? So that's how I get my inspiration, is I take a walk in the country. Okay, I told you earlier that I'd tell you about how to make a rock planting. This is the spirea. I have spirea in my front yard. It's actually not that old. It's probably 12, 13 years old. But to make a rock... Sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. To make a rock planting like this, what you do is you take your rock, obviously, and you stick it in all the way into a coffee can. All the way to the bottom of a coffee can, put it in a little pot or whatever. Put your rock in there, put soil over the top of it. Once you've got the soil right to the very top of the rock, then you plant your plant on top of the rock. And then you let it sit like that for a growth cycle, or maybe 2 growth cycles, until it's got a relatively good root structure. And then you take and you trim off, maybe 3/4 of an inch of that coffee can. And then you wait another growth cycle. Maybe 2 growth cycles, and then you take and cut off another 3/4 of an inch of that coffee can. And as the dirt will erode away.
You'll let it fall off.
It'll erode away based on rain and your watering it.
You're growing it outside.
Of course.
What part did you get here? The tree?
Well, I'm thinking of growing it in a greenhouse or something.
Oh, you could, but you're going to have to water it. And as you take that 3/4 of an inch of the can
Have a
off,
special guest.
That's right.
the dirt will erode away. And of course, what happens as that dirt erodes away, the roots got to go deeper and deeper and deeper to get their nutrients.
And how do you cut that coffee can without
Cutting the root. Well, it's in the middle.
roots?
Well, you'd be surprised. It really doesn't get all the way out to those roots as much. And generally speaking, roots will go deep, especially on trees like spirea. But just don't take off too much.
What are you cutting that coffee can with?
I just use tin snips.
Tin snips? Okay.
Yeah.
But your
I
tree's
can't
in the
cut
middle.
a straight line with tin snips.
Can you use a plastic coffee?
I mean, absolutely. It's much easier.
Any container.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it's much easier. That scissors will do that.
I have about 1 million of those if anybody needs to start a tree.
Now,
Put holes in the bottom of it.
yes, of course. Another question I get quite often is, I was driving down the street Saturday morning, and over here on this corner of this empty lot, there was a guy on a pickup truck, and he was selling bonsais out of the back of his pickup truck, and $12.95 didn't look too bad. And I just shake my head. I will guarantee you that the easiest way to spot fake bonsai growers is to start to find stuff like this. If you start finding things like this, and you'll find them in the malls, you'll find them, like I say, off the guy's pickup truck in the back.
And I have some of those statues.
But they're cute.
I was afraid you were going to say that. I was afraid of that.
There's nothing growing in the pot with them. The statues.
I was afraid you were going to say that because Bruce was telling me that you had some, and in reality, these are a dime a dozen. Literally a dime a dozen.
Yours are not a dime a dozen.
No, they're
So
really cheap.
you don't like these kinds of things.
Actually, they're considered rather vulgar.
So it would be okay if we took these today.
If you want to.
I think that's adorable.
Well, so let me show you where this type of influence is appropriate. There it is. Now, that's appropriate. That's a real figurine that is beautiful, that goes well with the tree. That's appropriate. These little guys, if you want to spend the $12.95 off the guy's pickup truck, you might as well throw your money in the trash can.
Okay, I guess I missed that step. So what's bad about these?
They're,
Just because it's a clay, it's not like a porcelain?
yeah, it's kind of like trying to put a big bow on a pile of dog doo-doo to make it look good.
So, and what's distinctively different about this one?
Those are porcelain. That's a porcelain figure. It's been fired and painted. Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
exactly.
It'd be like the difference between a resin figurine and a bronze figurine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got a little Jay with the fishing rod and fish on it, but he's porcelain and he's clay.
There you go.
Really cute in a fairy garden.
There you go.
To throw them away.
Those guys that sell out on the pickup truck, how do they raise, I mean, their trees aren't very old for one thing.
No, they're not.
I mean, how do they make them so small?
Actually, all they are is cuttings off junipers. I don't know. You can propagate juniper very easily. I don't know if you've ever done that, but it's real easy to do. You can take a juniper and propagate. I don't know, 40.
Is that what they usually sell? Or
Yeah.
Oh.
And you can propagate them real easy.
What's wrong with the guy in the pickup truck? What's wrong with his plants?
He doesn't have any knowledge
Oh, okay.
of bonsai. He's just a commercial grower trying to make probably 10 times the amount of money he would normally make off of a plant like that if he was just selling it to a nursery for that.
Okay.
So if you want to pay him $12.95, but most of the time his trees are going to be either dead or they've just been trimmed off and there's no root structure whatsoever. He just took it and stuck it in the pot and is trying to sell it for $12.95.
Well, at least he has a
That
job.
cutesy stuff.
I have terrible black thumb. I'm really bad at it, but I might be able to concentrate on one plant. But my question is, I have a whole bunch of juniper ground cover. Will a snipping from that create a tree?
Sure.
So I could start with clipping something off of that and start growing.
Absolutely.
as a tree.
Yeah.
Would you have to root it in water first?
No,
Damp soil.
a little root tone in your soil. Funny thing about root tone, if you've ever used it, you can easily use too much root tone. Don't think to yourself, well, more is better. More is better. No, with root tone you have to be careful. Don't use very much. But yeah, a little root tone in regular soil, and usually in the late fall, and let them. They don't go totally dormant over the winter time, but at least they'll have a chance to get part of a root structure going before the spring, and you get into a growth cycle.
But the juniper ground cover will become a tree if you
Absolutely.
properly.
Depends on what you want to do with it too. Ground cover juniper makes wonderful, and I didn't want to get into this because there's way too many forms, but you have there's 21 recognized forms of bonsai. There's the formal upright, there's the informal upright, there's the informal cascade, there's the full cascade, and ground cover would make a very, very beautiful full cascade where it comes over the side of the pot and hangs down.
Okay.
Now, it really depends on what you want to do.
Well, I just figured that'd be the cheapest way to start.
It is.
To buy a plant.
It is.
And it's already at least 12 years old.
There you go. There you go.
Start on the age.
Well, I wanted to go over just one more thing with you, and that is good places to find information. I mentioned the ABS, American Bonsai Society. They put out a very, very nice magazine once every 2 months. They'd love to have your money. ABS is easily found by Googling American Bonsai Society. I'll put a couple of those up there. Do you guys know about BRIT? Has anybody ever talked a bunch about the Botanical Research Institute of Texas? All right, woo.
We're talking about?
The Botanical Institute of Texas, Research Institute of
Well, I
Texas.
think I have a big, I think I've gone to a
It's
lecture, but I have a big book.
yeah, they moved. They were over near the railroad tracks in downtown Fort Worth, and now they're near the Botanical, so brand new facility. They have a tremendous library there, just a huge library of books. You can't check them out. You have to stay there and read them. But they are very nice. They actually gave me this one, Handbook on Bonsai Special Techniques, because they had 3 or 4 copies, so I got to take one. That's a good source of information. Books are a great source of information. Great source of information. Where do you get books? Libraries. Libraries.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Let me ask you a quick question about libraries. How many people in Texas have a library card?
I don't have one. I haven't had one for years.
3%.
Really?
3% of Texans have a library card. 3%. More people have a Majestic liquor card
Yeah.
than have a library card.
Well, you go there more often.
I can't get my arms around that. Wisdom of the world available to you. I mean, they teach you how to be rich, sophisticated, teach you any language you want, teach you how to be anything you want to be in the world.
Same with your drinking.
How much is a library card in Texas?
I do a lot of
It's free.
research on the internet.
It's free. It doesn't get any easier than free.
Google.
I mean, some guy says, well, could you bring it by? Well, no, you got to go get it. But it's free. So the reason I'm so strong on this is because I'm a member of the North Richland Hills Board of Directors for the library. I can't believe this beautiful facility that's free and people don't use it. So I'll get off my
Our library shows of social issues movies
Yeah,
that I go to.
there's so many different
And we
things.
have a discussion about this issue.
Or an argument.
Yeah, there's a couple of people I'd like to strangle.
A good quote recently that really rang true with me. It said, if you Google it, you'll get answers. If you ask a librarian, you'll get the right answer.
One more thing and I'm going to wrap up, and that is, how do you shape a tree? Now, there are many, many different ways of shaping a tree. Probably the one that everybody's seen the most is wiring, right? Everybody's seen bonsai trees that are wired. There are lots and lots of different ways to shape a tree other than wiring. And the books, of course, will tell you. But if you are going to wire a tree, please practice on something first. Please practice on something first before you get mangling a tree up with wiring. Wiring's okay. It's okay, but just make sure you practice. And the other thing about wiring I will tell you, and then I'm going to wrap up, is don't ever leave wiring on a tree for more than 1 growth cycle.
Oh yeah, I could see that.
You would be amazed how quickly the trunks can expand, the limbs can expand, and if you leave them on, if you leave that wiring on for more than 1 growth cycle, you'll scar your tree. You will literally scar your tree. More than 2 growth cycles, you're probably going to kill it. So if you do wire, for me personally, 8 months. 8 months is all I get, and my wiring's coming off that tree. Okay.
Let's give a bad example. Just step right out there to the trees on our tree line where the barbed wire has been absorbed by the tree.
Oh yeah.
That's a fine example. Exactly. Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have for you today. I appreciate you inviting me here
I
today.
have a question. When you have those trees outside, but now in the scorching summer or the freezing winter, are you mulching around them or covering them or anything so they're protected? Because they're in small pots, so they're not really in the ground. You know?
Well, in the summertime, depending on what tree it is, like a juniper or cypress or something like that, will take direct sunlight. No problem at all, as long as you keep it watered.
Do you use drip irrigation?
Yes, as long as you keep them watered, they're fine. Japanese maples, most maples don't take direct hot sunlight all that well. They'll burn. So my maples I keep in the shade during the summertime. In the wintertime, if it's going to be a freeze, I mean, if we're talking one of those freezes, that's going to last for 6, 7, 8, 9 days. I mean, we're not talking overnight. We're talking about a long. No. If it's going to last 6, 7, 8, 9 days, it's real easy. Take a shovel, 1 shot into the soil, put the tree in the soil, pot and all. You don't have to take it out of the pot. Just put it in the hole, cover it up, and the heat from the ground will keep it perfectly fine.
You're just protecting the roots?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it possible to do a bonsai in the ground and not in a pot?
What is the definition of bonsai?
Can you do something similar?
Of course. Of course. And you folks, you're thinking about your koi ponds. And you're thinking about maybe trees around the ponds, right?
Right.
Yes, absolutely. There's nothing to take that says that you can't take a tree and make it into any shape that you want. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a pot.
Okay.
But yeah, if you want to create something that is not in a pot and make it look shaped like a tree, sure, no problem at all.
What material, like ceramic, porcelain, glass of some form versus, say, brass, or is that going to impact your root system and your plant overall?
Not necessarily the material, but the philosophy. This is another one of those philosophy questions. The philosophy behind the pot is the pot shows off the tree.
Yes.
The tree never shows off the pot.
Okay.
So if you're going to go out and buy a beautifully decorative pot with, you know, all kinds of different colors all over it, the pot doesn't show off the tree doesn't show off the pot. Philosophy says the pot shows off the tree. And that's why you'll see pretty neutral, simple pots like that. So do what you want to do, but the philosophy is simply that the pot shows off the tree.
Okay. I was worried about
the material.
I was worried about something leaching into the soil, detrimental to the plant.
Well,
No, metal versus ceramics, or
no, not necessarily, but you were talking about throwing pots. What's the material that you use to, when you pour?
The hypertrophy pot?
Yeah. What's the material?
Portland cement, peat moss, and vermiculite.
Okay.
It's real airy kind of.
Yeah, but cement sucks water. I mean, it sucks water. Even if it's dry, cured, whatever, it sucks water. So you're going to have to, whatever you plant, well, you can seal it, yes. Or you're just going to have to water it a lot more.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, so that, it depends on the type of material. I actually have two old copper pots in my collection that I grow. There's an aside to bonsai called bonsai, and bonsai is the creation of a miniature landscape. And I've used these two copper pots because in bonsai you can kind of get away with not using the traditional pot, and they worked out really well. I mean, I got them at an antique store, and they look cute. I mean, they really look nice. But for the art of bonsai, just keep in mind the pot shows off the tree.
I have a question about your little figurines. Would a bonsai nursery have more appropriate pieces to add?
They might.
Okay.
They might.
Or where else? What kind of store, without you recommending a store, what kind of store?
I would Google it for.
If you go to the back of one of these magazines, it's nothing but ads.
Oh, okay.
And there are lots and lots of, wouldn't you know, I grabbed, this one doesn't have it, but there are lots of places throughout the United States, there we go, that will sell you just about anything that you need in terms of bonsai material. Anything you want, pots, turntables, equipment, you name it. So I'll leave these up here for a few minutes if you want to look through them. Any other questions?
I do have a question.
Yes.
What would you recommend to put on a hypertufa pot? And if I was going to seal it, would I want to seal the inside or the outside?
The inside.
The inside?
Yeah. Because that's where the water is going to leach out.
And then what would I seal it with?
Well, that's an interesting question. I've never had that question before. I would think maybe like a mastic material that they use around the edge of the pool, you know, or the concrete meets the stone around the pool. Mastic like that would be probably seal. Silicon, probably a good thing to seal with. Something like that.
I love hearing about the philosophies.
Thank you.
I mean,
that's
real interesting.
That's to me is where it's at, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I can talk about history all day long. I'm bored myself. But the philosophy is the part that really grabs me.
Very graceful.
Yes.
All right, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for
Thanks
having
a
me.
lot.
Thank you.
Don't know. Tell me what I got though.